What an interesting Gemara today. You learned today's daf, right?
This is Kuf Gimel one today.
Yeah, I don't think I know. Yeah. Oh, you know where we are? We're
Amar Rav Chisda Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. Maidich Siv Lo Yisuni Lecha Rav Negel.
This is Natan is here. We can start. Okay. Amar Rav Chisda.
I had it highlighted.
Oh wow.
Highlight the last spot.
Right.
Kuf Gimel Lamid Aleph.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Where? Kuf Gimel?
We're up to Kuf Gimel Amid Aleph, all the way in the bottom. It's like 2 lines from the bottom, 3 lines from the bottom, 4 lines from the bottom, 5, 6 lines, 6 lines. Kuf Gimel Amid Aleph on the bottom. Va'amar Rav Chisda. There's 6 lines in the bottom. Yeah. Va'amar Rav Chisda Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. We're darshaning the kapitel in Tehillim of Yoshev B'Seser Elyon. And by the way, Yoshev B'Seser Elyon doesn't have 1 letter in the entire kapitel. You know which one, right? Yoshev B'Seser Elyon, a Zion. Very good. A Zion. And because it doesn't have a Zion, that's why we actually say this kapitel Tehillim when we go to a Levaya, right behind the Aron. If you ever saw people murmuring, what are they saying? They're saying Yoshev B'Seser Elyon, to protect the neshama as it goes up to Shemayim, to protect it from Malachi Chabola. There's no Zion there, so there's no weapons, and all that is Yoshev B'Seser. Now the Gemara is going to darshan that Yoshev B'Seser was actually said by 2 different people and Hashem. What does that mean? That the Yetzer Hara should not have power over you, should not rule you. When you come into your oyel is referring to your wife, and you come from you come from a faraway trip, and you meet your wife at home. Make sure, just to give you a bracha. You shouldn't find her at safek nida. Interesting. Why avade nida? Yeah. Like a Safek Nida, no, Avadi Nida, yeah. So the Mefarshim explain that if when you come home from a trip and she's a Vade Nida, then you're not going to be Nichshol, because it's black and white, she's a Vade Nida. But if it's a Safek Nida and you come from a faraway trip, you're going to say to yourself, Safek, she's probably okay. It's okay. And you're going to be Nichshol in an Aveira, so therefore, Safek Nida is really where the issue lies. The Vilna Gaon uses this Gemara to explain what Hashem said to Cain, La Pesach Chatas Roivetz. La Pesach Chatas Roivetz means, Hashem says, don't give an opening to the Yetzer Hara. As soon as you leave the door open, right, as soon as you leave the door open, even if you don't let him in, it's already Safek Nida. It's already, you got to be totally black and white. Actually, the Meshech Chachma says that Yaakov Avinu told Esav, Ahili Shor V'Chamor, and Mlavan Garti, right, the Taryag Mitzvah Shemarti, I kept all of Torah. So how did he keep all of Torah? So Meshech Chachma says that's what he meant when he said Vahili Shor v'Chamar. I had a Shor and a Chamar. What does Shor and Chamar have to do with anything? Torah says Shor has 2 Simone Tahira. Chamar has 2 Simone Tuma. Chazir has Safek Nida. It's like 1 is a gray area. So Yaakov Avinu said to Esav, you know how he survived Lavan? Everything was black and white. There was no gray. There was no Safek. And therefore it's Shor v'Chamar. So the Vade Nida or Mutter Legamri is not a problem. The Safek Nida is where the problem is, and that's the bracha that he gave him. Shleitim tzach ishta Safek Nida. Simmen Toiv Mazel again. Shaul, still flying high from that dance last night. Shekayach. Davar achar l'seunay lecharo shliyavasucha chaloi misroim verhurim roim. That you shouldn't be scared of nightmares, of negative thoughts and nightmares. Yeah? Hurim Roim is like anxiety. People don't know this, right? Which great person, it's interesting that we're talking about, David is saying this to Shlomo HaMelech, actually, right? David is saying this kapitel to Shlomo HaMelech. Do you know Shlomo HaMelech had tremendous anxiety? Shlomo HaMelech had tremendous anxiety, especially after Ashmedai. He was, I don't know if you can call it PTSD, but he had trauma. And the Gemara says, Pasuk says that Shlomo Hine Metazish Shlomo, around Shlomo HaMelech's bed was Shishim Gebayrim, Savav Gebayrim, had 60 strong men from Gebayrim Yisrael. When he went to sleep, he was so scared that he shouldn't be captured by Ashmadai again, he had Shishim Gebayrim himself on Gebayrim Israel. So the Arizal says, the Mefarshim say, actually doesn't mean that he had, while he was sleeping in his bed, he had 60 Giborim around him protecting.
Shas, he had the Shas.
It means he had the letters, the psukim, engraved in his bed, Reb Shol, the psukim of Yevarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Yer Hashem ponev elecha v'yichoneka, Yis Shapalach, 60 letters. The 60 letters of the brach of Yevarechecha Hashem, that's what Shlomo Melech had, and that's what protected him at night. Says the Gemara, what else? Shouldn't have a son or a Talmud that is Doirish Barabim Hagodis and brings you shame. This was David's bracha.
Skip the. You have a different lashon in the Gemara.
One second, what do you got?
Kigoyin Yeshua Noitri.
No way.
Yeah.
See, we're censored over here. Kigoyin
We're not
Yeshua
censored.
Noitri.
You're censored on the.
Oh, wow.
I say we.
We're censored.
Is it showing over there? Go ahead, read it. What is it? Kigoyin Yeshua
Kigoyin
Noitri. That's it.
Yeah.
Because he was a Talmud of Yeshua Prachia, right?
Prachia, right.
And he
One
went
second.
out and he darshaned Godesh Shel Doifi.
Push away with the left, pull with the right. That's Yeshua Noitri.
That's today's daf. Yeah, Kavzayin, right. Yeah. Very good. Gemara says, from here on, Bathsheba, who is Shlomo Melech's mother, Bathsheba was saying the rest, right? She was saying from here on. What's interesting, David HaMelech is giving him all the brachas for spirituality. Make sure you don't find your wife a Safek Nida, you don't do an Aveira, right? All that stuff. Now the mother is going to give him all the brachas for his physical well-being. This is the job of a mother and a father. So he's saying, make sure that you have wings on your way so you don't bump into an Aryeh, a lion, or a Nachash, right? An Aryetzar, which is a Kfir. That's his mother's blessing. And the rest of the capital, Berchatu Shemayim, that's Hashem speaking. Know my name. Trust in me, and I'll protect you. You can always call out to me and I'll answer you. I'm with you in pain. That is the capital of Yosef B'Seis Elyon. We're up to, right now, Kuf Gimel Amid Beis, 3 lines from the top, 4 lines from the top. Omer Reb Shimon ben Lakish. You got it, Reb Shol? My Dechsiv. V'yamona mirshoim oiram izroya ramatishave. So over there it says in Eoiv the word rishoim, and the ayin is hanging. It's a little bit higher than the rest of the word. Why is the ayin in the word rishoim hanging, hovering a little bit above the rest of the word? Says the Gemara, Kivin shenasa adam rush milamata. As soon as a person loses his friends, rush means he doesn't have people who like him. He has soinim. So it's milamata. You should know it's a siman. Nasa Rosh milamalo. It's a siman that you have upstairs in Shemayim. There's a kitrig on you. Hashem is not happy with you. Kol ruach habriya isnoicha imenu. The Mishnah Nova says, you know, be a dua that Hashem is happy with you. But if it's not, you can tell over here, based on your relationships down here, what Hashem, how you are in the eyes of Hashem. Says the Gemara, if that's true, why do we need an ayin to begin with? Just say Russian. Russian means poor, right? Poor, meaning he's poor from friendships. He's an ani. He doesn't have people who like him here. Says the Gemara, some say it's because the covet of David. David HaMelech, right? He also had soinim. So somebody might think, take a look at David. He had so many people who hated him. Do you think that David HaMelech was hated Klapa Shemayim? Avada not. So therefore, we don't want to take out the ayin completely because there are exceptions. Not everybody is who's a Nasa Rush Malamata is Nasa Rush Malamala. Huh?
He also had friends.
Who else had friends? David. Right, he also had friends, right. Doesn't mean he only has Soinim, but he has Ruach HaBriyas. A lot of people didn't like David. He was on the run for a good portion of his life. And the other person we don't want to embarrass.
Was it that he had so many enemies, or that his enemies were so strong that looked like he had so many enemies, like Shaul?
They made a lot of noise, right? They had a lot of power. It's not quantity, it's quality. The quality of his enemies, not the quantity. Right. It could be too, right? That too. It doesn't say how many enemies you have to have for the simon. I'm not sure exactly how many enemies we're talking about, but a person who has enemies down here, is a simon that something is not beseder with him up there. Yeah, but again, it's not across the board. That's why the Gemara is saying there's an ayin still. It's not across the board. You can't take it. It's not black and white. Some say because Nehemiah had many soinim and he wasn't a Rasha. So if it wasn't a Rasha, it's not a simon that in Shemayim the Rebbeinu Shalom had some kitrig on him. Ton Rabbana Menashe Yishoyne Chamishim v'Chamisha Pana B'Teres Kahanim Connected Shnei Machusay. Menashe would darshan 55 oifanim in Sefer Vayikra. Why 55? Because Menashe became king when he was 12, and he was king for 55 years. So he darshan for every year of his kingdom, he darshan Sefer Vayikra in another way. Imagine going through every year Sefer Vayikra. Have a friend. He goes through Shnai Mikra V'Echa Targum every year with another Pirish, with another Rishon, with another Achron, right? Another Mefarish. I'm just trying to get through Shnai Mikra, but he gets through Shnai Mikra and he's once Archaim HaKodesh, once of Hirsch. Right? Anyway, so Menashe, he got through Sefer Vayikra every year of his life when he was king. He got through Sefer Vayikra and he learned it. He was mechadish and mefalfel every time. Nu chidushim. Achav was doirish Sefer Vayikra shmoinim v'chamisham. And Yeravim, meyesh 103 times. So what's interesting is, over here, you see that it wasn't that they were Amaratzim. They knew, right? They're Mavatal the Avodah. We'll see that they're Mavatal the Beis Hamikdash. So it's not the pshat that they weren't learned men. They weren't ignorant. They knew that there's a mitzvah of karbonis and they were mechadish chedushim in it, and yet they fell to the Yetzer Hara.
I like when the part, like the Gemara lines up with like what's happening.
What's happening in the parsha this week? It's Vayikra, right? We started Vayikra, and here we have in the daf this week, mamish. Whole world, the daf this week has this Gemara. It's unbelievable.
Rabbi, it's
incredible.
Hashem is happy if this lines up with things that are happening in the parasha.
Yeah.
The Gemara lines up with the
parasha.
Hashem is happy with what you're doing.
It's amazing. Who says that?
It's Rabbi Goldstein in Sfat.
Right. Wow. You know, it's interesting that the Baal Shem Tov teached in the Mishnah Novice, Ayin Roya, Da Mala Mala Mimcha. You should know what's above you. You should know that there's always somebody above you. Ayin Roya is in Shemaz v'chol Masecha b'Sefer Nechtavim. So the Baal Shem Tov said, Da Mala Mala Mimcha. You want to know what's going on Shemayim on you. So there were different stages in history and how to check that. And the beginning was Ayin Roya. Ayin Roya means it was an Urim V'Tumim, and it lit up. You're able to see. You're asking, and you're able to see what Das Shemayim, what Hashem wanted, right? Should I go to war? Should I not go to war? What's my job? Where should I do it? You could always go to the Urim V'Tumim and ask, and the Urim V'Tumim would light up. Ayin Roya. After Bais Rishon, one of the 5 stuff that was missing, the Gemara in Yuma says, was the Urim V'Tumim. So how did they know? They had a Basko. They had Baskos. So Oizen Shemas. That was later on in history. He didn't have the Ayin Roya anymore. He had the Oizen Shemas. And nowadays, we don't need Oizen Shemas. So how do we know Mala Mala? Is V'chol Masecha B'Sefer Nechtavim. You open the Gemara, and you take a look at the Sefer, you take a look at the Parsha. He said in the Parsha, and whatever comes up in your life, you can look at the Parsha and see, you try to find it in the Parsha itself. You could use it for Gor Lagra to explain it. The way the Baal Shem Tov said, it's mamish, the Parshas in Yonah Duyoyma. You want to know what to do in your, whatever you're learning. So Natan was saying, it lines up, this lines up with the Parsha. It's incredible.
They also say that you could listen to what women are talking about, and you'll know how close they are to God.
That I never heard before. Which women? Maybe your wife. What your wife is saying about you.
Nashim are talking to one another about it. You're walking by, you can hear what they're saying. Nachman says this.
Sounds like a Rabbi Nachman thing.
Los Angeles.
צריכים לברר. ברוך אתה
Next time.
The shaila is, the question they ask is, here they're learning the Yikra so many times, what happened to the schus of Torah? Person comes and learns Torah. How did that not protect them and prevent them from doing Avodah Zarah? So really, if you take a look at the Chovos HaTalmidim, the Heilige Psiatzner, he has a whole arichas in a Sefer Chovos HaTalmidim. You ever heard of the Sefer Chovos HaTalmidim? The Holy Sefer Chovos HaTalmidim, he says, why do you see some people learn Torah with all the brachas that Torah entails, all the brachas that the Torah promises for someone who's engaged in learning, and yet you see people who could be smoking on Shabbos, enjoying a blood Gemara. I mean, I don't know if you see it now, but there are stories, yeah? Like, this is This is Yadua, that there are people who are tremendous yadonim. They know Torah, they learn Torah, they even enjoy a blood Gemara, and they're not. And the maskilim, the maskilim in the
Because they don't have your Shema.
Oh, the teretz is
Moshe Mendelssohn Imach Shimo.
Yeah.
He was studying the Gemara. He was learned with other people.
Here we go. That's it. And what do you see? Menashe, Yeshayna. Menashe gave drushes and Sefer Vayikra, 55 different pshatim of Vayikra. Moshe White's a small aleph. He had all the pshatim in it, but it didn't help. It couldn't protect him. It was missing Yerushalayim. A person opens a Gemara, he has to have a hirur tshuva. He has to understand that he's engaging in Torah Hashem. Tanya Reb Meir, Rav Shalom in the Chilek Kol Baba. Shalom doesn't have a Chilek Kol Baba. Shenemer v'Yakuz of Shalom Misuhu v'Yakuhu. It says a double lashon. They hit him, they killed him. Be'olam Hazev Misuhu lo'il v'Yakuhu. Be'olam Hazev Misuhu lo'il Haba. So they basically were memis him in Olam Hazeh. And Vaymisu is the mashmos that he doesn't have a chilek. Tanya B'Shimon lo zeh Meir. Achaz v'Chazi v'Chamach Yisrael shekosem ben v'Yasera be'enei Hashem. All those people where it says by Malchi Yisrael v'Yasera they did evil in the eyes of Hashem. Loi chayin v'loi nedainin. They will not be resurrected at Chis HaMesim, and they also won't be punished in Gehenna. They're in limbo. They're mamish in limbo. Kafakela. They're in limbo. They can't go anywhere. They can't find peace. There's no Gehenna for them. Right? Gehenna would already be a treat. Right? They get washed out in Gehenna. They don't even go. They don't even deserve Gehenna. They can't even get Gehenna. Imagine that. Yeah. So they're just tluyin v'aimdim. They're Beit Shemayim and Oretz. Yeah. There was Beit Shemayim and Oretz. They don't want to. Nishtaher nishtahin. That's what they say in Yiddish. Very good, doctor. וגם דום נוקי שפך מן השעב מידת שמילה שרם נפל לפה לבד מחתוסה שהכניס יהודה לאסרה בין השם. We're talking about Menashe, that he killed so many people from one gate of one end in Yerushalayim to another gate to the other end of Yerushalayim was filled with pelepeh, and he was mamish. He did so many averos. Gemara says.
He also balachuto.
Oh, Gemara's going to say in a moment. Hachatargimu shaharag Yeshaya. Some say he didn't actually kill that many people, but he's considered as if he killed so many people because he killed Yeshayo Hanavi. Now remember, we're going to see soon. Yeshayo Hanavi was Menashe's grandfather. Menashe's grandfather. His grandfather was a Navi Hashem, and he killed his own Zayda. He killed his own grandfather. Because his grandfather prophesied against him. He was saying you have to do tshuva. He ended up killing him. You know what he did? He built a huge Avodah Zarah, and it needed to be carried by 1,000 people. And if you had 100 people carry it, they would collapse under the weight of the Avodah Zarah. And he would force 100 people to carry an Avodah Zarah that weighed so much, he needed 1,000 people to carry it. Why would he do that? Because that was the Avodah, that was how you served the Avodah Zarah. All those people were the Karbanot. They were the Karbanis for this Avodah Zarah. That's what he did, and that's how he killed so many people. If you say that he killed Yeshaya, and that's why he's considered like he killed so many people, you see that a neshama of a tzaddik is keneged kol olam kulay, is mamish like a whole world. Where it says ksiv pesel ksiv apsilim. It says Menashe put a pesel in the Beis Hamikdash, and then it says B'lashon Rabbim. It says plural. Reb Yochanan betchila asel partzef echad. First, Menashe put a pesel with one face. Al basayif in the end, asla ba partzufim. He had 4 faces to 4 different directions. He wanted the Shechina Kaviyachal to be able to see his Avodah Zarah, the face of Avodah Zarah, in all directions. Achaz Amida Baaliyah. Achaz, who was Achaz? Achaz was Menashe's, I believe Menashe's grandfather, right? Chizkiyahu was his father, and Achaz was Chizkiyahu's father. So Achaz, the first, his grandfather started putting a pesel in the aliyah of the Beis Hamikdash. Shenemar, that's Hamizbuch Alagag Aliyas Achaz. Menashe, his grandson, was Moisev Amida Beheichal. He put it into the Heichal outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Shenemar v'yosam Speit Lasher also v'vayis Amar Shem Al David v'shleim v'bnei B'yisrael v'shleim v'shmachad because they saw also Mashmi La'olam and Amain. Omen did even worse. He put it mamish in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Shenemar ki kotzer ha'matzah misterei v'masech tzorah kiskanis. Maiki kotzer ha'matzah misterei. Omer Shmuel Achmeni Rabbi Yonasan kotzer ha'matzah hazeh milostorol v'shnei reim ke'echad. He said, Beis Hamikdash is too small for 2 to be able to dwell in the Beis Hamikdash. To have an Avodah Zarah with the Shechina, that's already crowded. It's too crowded. Omer Maya masech tzorah. Omer Shmuel Achmeni Rabbi Yonasan ki havamot la'krav v'kabachi. And when he came to this pasuk, Reb Shmuel ben Achmeni, he said, Rabbi Yonasan cried. Why? Because Mishakasav boy koinas kaneid mehayam. Teosiloi Maseicha Tzara. Hashem, who can gather, who can make so much space and gather all the oceans and put it into a very, very high chayma. That means he can make more space in the world. For HaKadosh Baruch Hu can make so much space. You're saying Teosiloi Maseicha Tzara that he's crowded with an Avodah Zarah. It doesn't make any sense. Why did he cry though? Why did he cry? So there's another pshat on the Maharsha over here. Explains that really what it means is Koines Kaneid Me'ayam is referring to Kriyas Yamsuf. Kriyas Yamsuf, Hashem put the water like a big wall, like a chayma. And what happened? Who was in the Yam? Who was carrying an Avodah Zarah as they were going through the Yam? Micha, Pesel Micha. Micha was carrying the plate to say the Shem Hashem to be able to do Avodah Zarah. We'll see soon. And yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu was tolerant of him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was tolerant of him.
He waited Hashem till Bilegesh Bagivah.
Oh, we'll see in a minute. Yeah, we'll see. Hashem punished them at the village of Yeah, with Micha, right.
For them to do teshuvah. And they didn't do teshuvah.
Yeah, we'll see why then Hashem brought them the Einish. But
Micha was the one who was saved by Hakadosh Baruch Hu.
No,
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Moshe Rabbeinu took him.
No, but Moshe Rabbeinu happened that Hakadosh Baruch Hu should save him from being put in the wall.
Correct.
Moshe took him out of the wall.
Took him out.
Moshe asked Hakadosh Baruch Hu.
Hashem told him, leave him in the wall.
Yeah, and so
Moshe said, no, I'll make it teshuvah. He took him out of the wall.
Yeah, but that was a mistake.
Right. No, Hashem. Yeah, it was
Hashem said, don't take him.
whoever died in Mitzrayim.
גם שאול kept,
Yeah.
I'm puzzled why Yeshua did not kill Amalek. He had the chance to kill all of them. You know why I think so? Because from Agag become לומדים
מבני בניו של המן למדו תורה בבני ברק.
רצה שיצא המן. ישוע יכל להרוג את כולם.
Okay, it's a nice limit chus. Very nice limit chus. I know that you're being melamed chus on Shol because that's your name. You're a little bit biased here.
Actually, not on Shaul.
You're saying Shaul didn't kill a guy because he wanted bnei banav.
Yeshua could finish everything.
Yeshua.
Why Yeshua did not kill all of them? He left the
Why did he leave
כתוב שם, בתורה כתוב, הוא השאיר אותם. האם השם אמר להרוג אותם, אז איך ישוע השאיר אותם ולא קרה לו כלום? ישוע השאיר אותם, והשם אמר...
So תגיד אותו למצחוס על שאול.
אז נכון, אז שאול גם כן...
אבל הוא נענש. Okay. Ochaz bitlas avoid the b'chosem as atayra. Ochaz, Zaidi Menashe was mevat le'avoida and b'chosem as atayra, and he stopped. He made sure that there's no more learning Torah. Shenemer tzar te'uda chasoim Torah b'lemudai. Menashe's grandson did even worse. Koder azkaras, he erased all the shemas in the Sefer Torah from Hashem. V'haras hamizbeach, and he destroyed the mizbeach. Amoin did even worse. Saraf es Torah, he burned the Sefer Torah. V'helos shmamis al gam hamizbeach. And he made sure that the spider webs was taken up by the place of the mizbeach over there. Ochaz yitter sa'erva. Ochaz was mater arayas. Menashe bo'al achoisai. Menashe was with a sister. Amoin bo'al imoy. Again, one was worse after the next. Shenamiki amoin har ba'ashmer. V'yechmer b'lo zechad omar shesarv v'sator v'chadom shebal ima amar lo ima klum yesh l'cha noma kashat. His mother said, you have pleasure from the place that you came out of. Amar lo. I'm not doing it for pleasure. I'm doing it to rebel against my Creator. Unbelievable. It's almost hard to imagine. Yaakov said, those guys were nothing. They're the minor leagues. I'm a major league player here. I'm going to tell you how to rebel against Hashem. You think we need God's son? We have a bunch of gold. It lights up the dark. We don't need Hashem's son. Let Hashem take back his light. What are you going to use? You're going to use the gold? It's also his. It also belongs to Hashem. So Yaakov said, no, that he already gave us. He gave us, and therefore we can use the gold that he already gave us, but the shemesh, which is in the shemayim, he can take back. What is it? It's the finest.
The zahab glow at night. like a light.
Wow.
We don't have it.
We don't have it today.
We don't do that, but
It's the.
משתמשים בזה בcaves. The
Uh-huh.
caves used to put in treasures. They used to put the
I see he brings here the Maharsha says it's called parvayim because it was doima to the blood of a par. That's how bright it was. Okay. What's more than gold? Platinum was more than gold. Yeah. Interesting.
It was lit.
Yeah. So Amalei Rav Yokim. Why do we count your Yokim in the Mishnah on the blacklist of kings that don't have a chelik l'labah? Because it says in Divrei Yomim that all the rest of your Yokim's toyevis v'hanimtza olav. What does it mean nimtza olav? Ma nimtza olav? B'yechim lo zechad omer shechokak shem avodas kacham al hamasoi. V'chad omer shechok shem shemayim al hamasoi. He took his erva.
Wonderful king.
And he engraved, he got a tattoo. He put Hashem's name on his reproductive organ.
Yeah, wonderful king.
And some say he put the name of Avodah Zarah there because his reproductive organ was the place, either because it's a place of masculinity or it's a place of bizoyin to put Shem Hashem on it. Amar lei b'malachim le'shamati. He says, Ataka don't know why Yoakim, he was such a rebellious king. Why wasn't he on the blacklist of kings who don't have a chelik l'olam haba? That I don't know. But had Yoitas shamati, I can tell you by Yoitas why. Ne'mal l'manas micha. By Micha, why? By Micha do we say ein loy? Why do we say that ein lo chelik l'olam haba? Ne'shapitay mitzuya la'over drachim shenemer kala over v'shav la'leviyim. Because he would give from his pas to over drachim. Now, Micha would give from his pas to Ovei Drachim. So Micha what do you mean Micha shel Moshe Rabbeinu?
Same generation.
How does that help with Yoakim?
Micha was the melech.
What does it mean Micha Moshe Rabbeinu? It's interesting. It's Micha that's mentioned in.
You're saying Pesel Micha? Is that what you're saying?
It's Machlokas whether this was the original Micha or he was a grandson.
A grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu.
So or grandson or the original Micha.
That's right. So yesterday we asked the Kasha.
Lived over 400 years. If it was the original Micha,
Yeah.
he would have been living from the time of
Right.
from Mitzrayim.
Yeah, he would have been an old. Yeah. Also, so both of them. I mean, really, if it's a grandson of.
No, it's a great-great-grandson. He was age appropriate.
He's a great-great-grandson.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would argue that if you adopt somebody, is that your son?
Yeah.
So Moshe adopted Micha. He took him out of the.
So maybe you want to be miyasha both shitas. Very interesting. Very interesting. We spoke yesterday. I'm sure you weren't here, but we asked the kasha yesterday. Very strong kasha on Achav. Also, the Gemara says that he was considered in the eyes of Hashem a beinani, mechza. Even though he was a 99.9% Rasha Gomer, maybe 100%, but he was a Vatran B'Mamayna. Since he was Vatran B'Mamayna, the doctor had a whole shot on that. So Hashem kind of canceled out a lot of his Averis. We asked, Hashem doesn't really do that because we know he's not a Lekech Sheichad. Lo Vatran. And we didn't really answer on that. The doctor had a Mahalach. But over here we find a similar concept, that Micha really was a Choyta Machti. He was a Choyta Machti just like Yeravam. And yet, Hashem, the Gemara says we don't count him amongst the Hadyoitim that do not have a Chelik L'Olam Haba because Pitay Mitzuya B'Ovrei Drachim, he sponsored a big Kiddush. Like the Golds, this Shabbos, there's a Kiddush for the Loimdei Daf Yomi, and for the Mesaimim on Sanhedrin, so make sure that you come by to make a L'chaim. Or better yet, daven here. Yeah, we big chizik. So, daven here every week. Yeah. So,
wait a second, this Shabbos is before Pesach.
Yeah, this is the last Shabbos you could do. Really, Shabbos HaGadol, we're not going to be here. So, this is the Shabbos we're going to make a Kiddush in honor of Masech Sanhedrin.
Wait a second, this Shabbos HaGadol?
It's considered Shabbos HaGadol?
It's not Shabbos
HaGadol. The minhag is
because not going to be here. Because it's going to be in
Aha.
No?
The drush is this Shabbos. Okay. I just want to. I had a chiddush today. I want to mention it briefly. I don't want to get too caught up in this. But how's it possible that Micha has a chelik olam haba despite being a choyta machtis rabim because he was pitoy mitzuya la'ovrei drachim? Hashem is not a lekeach shoichad. We saw yesterday Hashem is not a lekeach shoichad. So how is it possible that he has a chelik olam haba? So I remember the Gemara in Brachas. Gemara in Brachas Daf Chof Amud Beis. The Gemara says that the Malachi Hashoris came to Hashem and they said, Rebbeinu Shalom, listen to the Gemara. Kosav b'sayresecha, asher lo yisa panim, v'lo yikach shoichad, you're not a lekech shoichad. So, avale ata no yisa panim li Yisrael, you are lekech shoichad. Why? Because it says, yisa Hashem panav elecha. So Hashem said, heich lo yisa panim li Yisrael, how can I not be lekech shoichad? When it comes to a yid, shekasavti lem b'torah v'achalta v'savata v'eirachta, when I wrote that you're only mechuyim b'chas hamazmeh deraisa once they're full, they're satisfied, and they make b'chas hamazmeh midrabanan, they're machmer to bench even by kazayis and a kebeya. So kasha is, what does this all mean? How is this an answer? It's apples and oranges. Are you lekech shoichad or are you not lekech shoichad? No, because they bench even on a kazayis, so a mela, I'm a lekech shoichad. So the Tanya explains an amazing, deep idea. He says when a person does a chait, he's master, right? He removes the presence of Hashem, so to speak, in the world, right? It removes the presence of Hashem. When a person makes a bracha, bracha, bracha's moloshen brecha, vayavrecha sagmalim, hamavrecha sagef, and you're drawing down the presence of Hashem. You're drawing down the presence of Hashem. So whatever you did is a tikkun. When a person does an aveira, it's not that it cancels it out. It's like a tshuva. You remove the presence of Hashem through an aveira. So when you are benching, you're machmer, and you're benching in a kazayis or in a kabeya, so with that benching, you're making a bracha. You're drawing the Shekhinah back down. It could be that's what the Gemara says by Micha. Micha was a machtias rabim. He removed the presence of Hashem. Zog the Gemara, no, but pitay metzuya ba'ovrei drachim. What does that mean, pitay metzuya ba'ovrei drachim? That he served bread to all the passerby, right? To the Levium, to everybody. What does bread do? You eat a kazayis, what do you have to do? You got to bench. When you bench, you bring the Shekhinah back down. So you're masakin, whatever chet, whatever presence of Shekhinah you removed, and therefore he taka does have a chelik in Olam Haba. Ken Zayin, could be. So the Gemara. V'over bayom tzara v'hika bayom galim. It says the pasuk in Zechariah that we went into the Yamsuf and Hashem hit the waves to make room for us to go through. And who was in there? Micha was in there with his pesel. He had. This is Micha. This is the Micha that he used that pesel to make the Shem Hashem.
Maybe the same Micha, So that's
meaning that's the continuation.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Yeah. Tanya of Nasanaimer, Migorev l'Shiloi. From the place Micha had his pesel until Shiloh, where the Mishkan was at the time, Shloisha Milan was only 3 mil. V'hayashan hamarocha, v'hashan pesel Micha mis'arv zebazeh. The smoke of either one was mis'arv. Bikshu malach hashosh l'doichfai. They wanted to kill him. Om l'kadosh baruch hu anicholoi. You know why? Shepitoi metzuya lo'ovid drochem again. This was his chus. V'adavar zeh nenshu anshei pelegish begiva. Because of this, the anshei pelegish begiva were nanash, like you said, Rishol, earlier. Why? When Micha made the pesel, you didn't protest, you didn't demonstrate, you didn't rise up in anger and to protect my honor. But Pelegesh, when she was violated, you got angry because they violated a human being. What about they violated my covet? So when they took revenge on the act of Pelegesh Begiva, Hashem said, now I have to take a revenge in you for not rising up by Pesel Micha. Achnasas Orchem is so great that because of that, Shtei Mishpachas, Ammon and Moav, were prevented from coming into Klal Yisrael. Shenemar, Al Dvar Asher Lekid Meschem Lechem Avamayim, because Ammon and Moav didn't go out and greet you with Lechem and Mayim when you left Mitzrayim. Rabbi Yochanan Dei Yomar Merachekes Akroivim, it farthers away the people are close. Makarebes are choikim. Right, the lack of a karsatayv also.
No, cruelties.
Why? Because they knew they needed it. They don't have the DNA to be a Jew. The DNA, Rachmanim, those are one that, yeah. Right. Beautiful. Unbelievable. That's Shiamut.
Which is trade. Because the Oreb, the raven, he throws away his kids. He doesn't shelter them.
Right. Ooh, that's why, because it has that achzorias tendency. Yeah. Beautiful. Rabbi Yochanan says, he goes weiter. He says, Merachekes akroivim. Hachnasas orchem, if you don't do it, it's merachik the kroivim. Umakareves archoikim. If you do it, it's makarev the archoikim. Malevas anayim nerishoyim and Hashem. If you have that mitzvah in your arsenal, then Hashem is malamayin. He turns a blind eye from your rishis. The masha shechina on the via abal. And even if the via sheker, Hashem says, I'll give them nevuah. And if somebody is b'shoigig, prevents archim from coming into his house, Hashem treats it like a mazid. That's how chamer it is. Merachek is akroidim with the Gemara. Amin Moyav. That's Amin Moyav. That Hakadosh Baruch Hu was merachik them from Klal Yisrael because they didn't do achnas archim. They didn't greet us with lechem amayim. Makarev is archoikim Yisrael. How do you see that somebody's a rachik can come close simply by doing the mitzvah of achnas archim? Tell me, Rabbi Yochanan, bischar kirin loy v'yoichel lochem bischar. The schar for Yisrael. When Yisrael told his daughters, bring Moshe, let him break bread with us. The chschar was that his grandsons sat in Sanhedrin Gedoylo, and they passed in the Lishkas Gosh Nemer, Mishchei Seifrim Yesh V'Yabetz Tirosim Shemosim, Suchosim Emakinim Abba Machos Avia Beis Rechav, Ksiv Hosim B'nei Keni Chosim Moshe, Olam Yatmar Mis B'nei Yudah Midbar Yudah Shvleg V'Rod V'Yelch V'Yesh V'Sa'am. So you see that Yisra Zoicha, unbelievable. Yisra Zoicha to Moshe Rabbeinu, to grandchildren, great grandchildren who sat in the Lishkas Agaz as part of the Sanhedrin, all because he said 4 words, Kira and Loi V'Yoicha Lochem. Call him in, invite him in for a slice of bread, for a shtickle bread. And Hashem turned the blind eye from Micha, even though he was an Ovid Avodah Zarah Zechayte Machti. Still, Hashem said, he got away with it because he was a generous guy. He invited people in, or he shared his bread. This is a very frightening story. What happened over here by Chaveru Shel Ida Hanavi? I don't really know Navi, but at the bottom over here they bring the whole story where Hashem sent Idoi to tell Yeravam to stop doing Avodah Zarah. Yeravam had an Egel in Beisel and he had an Egel in Dan. Hashem sent Idoi Hanavi to tell him, stop. Now, Hashem said, after you tell him the message of stop doing Avodah Zarah, immediately return to your house. Don't stop to talk or really to break bread or drink with anybody. Just go straight back home. On his way home, he meets another Navi. Now, this guy's a Navi Sheker. Okay, and Idai should have known. The Gemara earlier said there were telltale signs. He should have known that he was an Navi Sheker, but he didn't really pay attention to the details. He says Hashem retracted. Hashem said, "No, you can break bread with me. Come over, let's break bread." So what happened was he brings him into the house, and Idai starts eating with him, and immediately there's a nevuah, not to Idai, but to the Navi Sheker, to the guy who lied, and he gets a nevuah. And in that nevuah, Hashem says, tell Idai that he's going to die. Because I told him not to break bread with anybody on his way back from Yeravam, and he did.
Did he get eaten by a lion?
And he got eaten by a lion. And that's what happened. But how could a Navi Sheker receive nevuah? He was a shakran. He brought Idai. He misled Idai.
Because he was the one that...
The answer is because he gave him bread. Because he was the one who invited him for bread, even though he lied. But you see that it's so great, the mitzvah of giving somebody else food is so great that even if you're a Navi Sheker, you get a nevuah as well. As they're sitting and eating. Yeah, you know, Rav Noach Weinberg, founder of Eish HaTorah, used to say, how do we know How do we know that? We learn from Avram Avinu, right? Hashem was with Avram Avinu, and all of a sudden he gets up, leaves Hashem, and he goes to the Shloisha Anoshim that he sees, right? The Malachim. Aravim. Question is, how did Avram Avinu know that he could just leave Hashem? How did he know? We know it from Avram, but how did Avram Avinu know it? And Rav Noach Weinberg used to say this a lot. He used to say, because Avram Avinu understood that the only thing greater than being with Hashem is being like Hashem. So Avada, being with Hashem is great, but being like Hashem is even greater. So being somebody who is a giver, somebody who is machnes oirach, then you're mamish like Hashem. So being with Hashem is gewaldig. Being with Rav Chaim Kanievsky is gewaldig, but being like Rav Chaim is much greater, right? You can all understand that. And that's how Avram Avinu knew it. That's it. Exactly. This is how Hashem treats us, like Orchim. Yeah. Problem is, we start thinking. Very good. מזכיר לנו מהר מאוד, Yes. ושגיגוסו אוי לזודן. דאמר רבי דמרב, ולמולו לבוא יוינס לדובץ' תקיקרס לחם, Here, the shoygig is even treated like a mazen. In other words, if you don't do it, Hashem is very chomer. Hashem is very strict on that. Why would you see that? From Yonason and David. When Yonason told David to run from Shaul, we all know the story, so he didn't send him with food. He should have given him shtei kikros lechem. If he would have given him those kikros lechem, Noiv Kahanim would never have been killed. Right? The whole story of Noiv Kahanim was because David went to them, he was hungry. So he said, I'm on a secret mission from Shaul. But if Yonason would have given him bread, he never would have had to lie, and Shaul never would have killed all that followed, all the tragedies that followed. So that one act, that single act, right? Sometimes it's so interesting that how the Gemara connects the story, saying if Yonason would have given a piece of bread, look what would have been prevented. Like one detail, look what would have been prevented. You know, I was just listening. I don't remember who I was listening to, a shiur on Pesach, and he was saying how we know that the four kaises correspond to the words kais in the dream of the Sarah Mashkim. It says 3 times the word kais, and the fourth kais is Brech Samazon. You need a kais Brech Samazon, but the other 3 kaises are for the 3 times. So, Rav Malach Biderman said it. I heard from Rav Malach Biderman Shlita. He said, what does that do with Sarah Mashkim? Talking about Yiz Mitzrayim over here. We know Yosef was sold into Mitzrayim, but Sarah Mashkim, the dream of Sarah Mashkim. So he said, yeah, because we have to remind ourselves. He brings it to Ben Shchai to remind ourselves that it's the Sarah Mashkim is an integral part of the story. Because had the Sarah Mashkim not been put into prison, then Yosef never would have interpreted his dream. Never put his dream, so never would have gone out, never going to go, never becomes viceroy. So you have to connect it. He says even further, a fly. If not for the fly that fell into the cup of Paroi, right, then Sarah Mashkim never would have been thrown in. So he says, Gans Yitzias Mitzrayim comes down to a fly. A fly. Zzz, right? That fly. Who would have thunk, right, in that moment, that fly is buzzing around, that fly is responsible, is a piece of the rest of history in Klal Yisrael. Unbelievable. So he's saying, Chazal are connecting this. They're saying, if you want to see why Noiv Ira Kehanim and Shol and Shleish's Bonav and Doeg Adoimi connected to a lack of a loaf of bread. You would have got a loaf of bread, you would have prevented the whole thing. And that's what Sheyigasa Oilo Zodan means.
All the world's wars are over a bowl of soup.
Over a bowl of soup. Tell me, go ahead, follow through. How? Gewalt Natan. Moiridig. Over a bowl of soup.
We just give them that. Give them another bowl of soup.
Right. Weiter, let's, yeah? Nimale Manuas Achaz.
This guy is a sore loser. Yeah, it's not a sore loser. You know, you lost it. You know, you wanted to sell your everything for Nazita Dashim. It's your problem.
He was afraid of it. He knew he was not on the radar.
Now you're talking Kabbalah with me. I don't know so much about Kabbalah.
Yeah, Reb Achaz is another Russia that's not mentioned on the blacklist of kings who don't have a chilek leil babo. Why not? Because he was a son of a tzaddik and he had a son of tzaddik. He was sandwiched between 2 tzaddikim. He had protection. Rav Yosef Omer, this is an amazing thing. He says that's not why. A different reason. He was embarrassed by his Averis from Yeshayahu Hanavi. Shenemar, Shakasan Pasuk, Yemar Hashem Yeshayahu Tzeino Likras Achaz, Ato Usha'or Yoshuv Benecho Al Ktzei Ta'ola Sabrecha Al Yoina Masiz De Chayves. So he says, Hamizbayish, it's a Gemara in Brachas. So Gemara says he was embarrassed. My koives. What does it mean koives? What does it mean? Why is it called the makam koives? You don't do kvisa in a field, right? When you wash in the olden days, you went to the Sfas Hanor, you went to the river. You don't do it in the Sada. Why is it called koives? Some say because he hid koives moshen koivesh. He was hiding his face. He didn't want Yeshayahu to see him. You know the famous story of R Yoel Gold, right? R Yoel Gold was once walking in the street, and you know the Maisa, right? And there was an old Talmud from Yeshiva who was walking down, and the Talmud realized that R Yoel Gold was going to see him, and he wasn't wearing a yarmulke. So he was really embarrassed. He was trying to cover his face, embarrassed. So R Yoel Gold, but it's too late. R Yoel Gold noticed him, right? and as he comes closer, the Talmud felt uncomfortable. He was embarrassed. He says, "Rebbe, I'm so sorry. I know it's he's like this, isn't it?" So Rav Aryeh says, Rav Aryeh Levine was a very short man, very short. He was very short. He looks up and he says, I really can't see that. I can't see past your heart. I can't see past your heart. I can only see till he's short. Like I can only see till your heart. So let's look at another yid. Levine. So here we have Mamish a similar story. Here we have Ochaz, as big of a rush as he was embarrassed of Yeshayahu. By the way, Yeshayahu Novi was his future mechutin. You know that, right? Because the Gemara Bracha says Tzkiyahu didn't want to get married because he saw he's going to have a son of Russia. Gemara Bracha is Daf Yud. The bottom, the Gemara Bracha says there, Yeshayahu Novi says you're going to die. So Chizkiyahu said, I'll do tshuva. Afilu cherev chada menachas atzavar shalodam ha'isiyah atzmos. He did tshuva. And then he said, now you gotta have a child. So he says, why don't you give me your daughter? Yeah? Right? So says maybe both of our schusim, right, will have a child at tzaddik. Lamaisa, at the end of the day, they had Menashe. I think that they had two. They had two kids. There's a story behind that too.
Well, he didn't want to have any kids, and he said, that's the Eibishter's cheshbon. You don't.
Yeah.
He's saying,
why are you getting involved in the soidus of Hashem? There's a Maisa where he took them. Chizkiyahu worked very hard to have good kids. He knew the nevuah. Yes. Yeah, the Gemara says that one child said it was like on his head. So one child said, wow, we can use Abba's head to fry a fish on it. And the other one said we can use Abba's head to put Avodah Zarah there. So Chizkiyahu hears, he's carrying his kids on his shoulders, and he threw them down, and one of them died, and one of them was alive, and Menashe.
That's what Menashe did.
Wow. Listen, we have to understand that Godesh Pesach, Rosh Hake Shinov. I mean, it's like you understand.
Aaron has two children.
Yeah.
Also.
What about it?
They were waiting. They said when Moshe and Aaron.
Right. Nadav and Avihu said, "Mosa Yamusu Shnei Zekenim Alolu," so they can take over. Right. That's similar. Yeah, but they were Taka Tzadikim. Right. Some say that he took a kli that the koifsim use, right, where you scrub the begodim in that keli, and he put it over his head, either because he wanted to cover his head or to cover his head as a sign of respect. But either way, he was embarrassed. It's like the Gemara, another Rasha is not mentioned in the blacklist of Malachim that don't have a chelik l'rabo. The kvoid shel Yeshayahu, Mechabed Yeshayahu, his son, who was a tzaddik. They didn't mention him in the list. But Avadi doesn't have a chelik l'rabo. Menashe nami lo nimni. What about Menashe? The kvoid shel Chizkiyahu. He also had a father like Chizkiyahu. So the Gemara says, so why is Menashe mentioned if he had a father like Chizkiyahu? Gemara says, Bra Mazaka Abba. A son could be Mazaka, his father was a Rasha. A son can protect his father. Abba, loy Mazaki Bra. But a father cannot be Mazaka, his son, who is a Rasha. Speak about it in a moment why. Tichsiv ve'em yodi matzel, ein Avram matzel es Yishmol, ve'ein Yitzchak matzel es Esav, and ashta da asas la'achi, once you say the svara, achaz nami lo imne, could be achaz, also is not counted in the list, mishum kvoid shechizkiyahu, because he had a son at tzaddik. So if you have a son at tzaddik, we don't mention you.
What about David and Avshalom?
Yeah.
David and Avshalom, David was the father, and Avshalom was the son, so it doesn't work. A father cannot save a son. A son. So Gemara over here said a brisa that Avshalom does not have a chelik l'rabo. We just learned earlier.
He brought him out. Remember?
So later, yeah. There's a David HaMelech. He davened. He said Beni 7 times. He took him out from the seven Madura Gehenim. But originally he didn't have a chelik l'rabo. But if not for that, you're saying so his father protected him. Yosef Chaim is asking, you see that David protected his father.
He couldn't protect him either. He tried to protect him.
Who? Tried to stop him. Right. Right. Had to kill him. Right. But you're saying good. You're saying David really did save Avshalom, but he saved him through tefillah. Here we're talking stam. The schus of a father stam protect the son to kind of keep him in the dark and not mention him in the blacklist of Ein L'Chel K'Mabah. There, that we don't know.
זה שונה. פה דוד המלך עדיין היה בחיים. פה הם לא בחיים עדיין. הם כבר לא בחיים.
אוקיי.
פה דוד עדיין בחיים.
תירוץ יפה גם כן. אוקיי, very nice.
יש לו כוח לתפילה.
יפה מאוד.
מתים כבר בקבר.
יפה מאוד. אוקיי, שכוייך חבר'ה, גוואלד. אוקיי.
We just say that.